them cards that we see with all the fights, he's not going to be in the first two lines. It won't happen. He ain't going to be the 330 guy, but he's going to be in the, he's going to be in the third or fourth line, and that ain't good.
He's what I call a sunset guy.
See, there you go. See, he already, Tony knows.
Yes.
Tony knows.
He's going to get the show started for you, but he ain't who we're here to see.
In this corner, standing at 6'5", weight class unknown, but hailing from the city of sin, put your hands together for Jamieson Welsh. And in this corner, standing at 5'10", weighing in at pounds, and coming to us from his super secret bunker with no AC in Tucson, Arizona, put your hands together for Luis Montemayor.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Mixed Company Podcast. Of course, I'm one half of the show. I'm Jamieson, joined by Luis as always. Luis, what's going on, man?
Oh, Jamieson, I am so excited to be here recording episode 35. Before we get into anything else, I just got to do a little bit of recap from an event I went to last week. I told you about it, and it was the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. I got invited, well, the show got invited to a media day in Phoenix for the Navarrete versus Nunez fight happening February 28th. So if you're just listening to us on audio, you can check out our YouTube channel. I got some pictures I'm going to pop up here. But yeah, it was just a media luncheon. Get in there. The fighters are there. The main event fighters are there, Navarrete and Nunez. But also, friend of the show, Trini Ochoa, was at the event. He's going to be fighting on the 28th. We interviewed him before. Got another guy named Jordan Martinez, also from Arizona. And it was so cool. It was just the coolest thing to be able to be in that mix. You know, I'm showing some behind the scenes pictures that I took, but I got in there to actually interview Navarrete, Nunez, and got some video. By the time this drops, I'll have a mini episode up on our YouTube of the event and you know, the interviewees there. So yeah, and we got a picture here of the five fighters that were at this event. And it was so cool. I gotta admit, like, there were other people that were legit journalists, you know, with publications and, you know, other podcasts, TV shows, and it was just awesome. So huge thanks to Emily Gurdon, also a friend of the show, for extending the invite. Yeah, she got to me last week and said, you know, come on down. We're happy to have you. And I don't know, man. I just I didn't expect to get to this point with the show because I'm just a regular dude, you know. But it was awesome. So you've done some of these events before. So I mean, what's your vibe on it? Because I just thought it was amazing.
It all depends on what the vibe is. So if it's a serious, like if it's a mega fight, it's a mega fight. You got all kind of people in there from all different backgrounds. It is what it is. You get in when you fit in. You interview who you can, and you go on about your day. You make the best of the situation, right? So the big events we have here in Vegas, if you have a chance to interview a former boxer or a trainer or a celebrity, you do it, and then whatever content you get, you make it work for what you get. You went to a more smaller event to where you kind of pick and choose who you want to interview, what questions you have, and whatnot. In the bigger events, you don't have that. You gotta have to freestyle because you don't know who you're gonna get. You might get Winky Wright, you might get an old judge, you might get an old fight promoter, you might get a celebrity that don't even box. It just depends, but it's good to have that experience because all the events are dope. Whether it's a smaller event or a big event, they're all dope because it's boxing. We love boxing. So being able to speak boxing is always cool with people.
Yeah, I told a couple people there, and everybody was super friendly, mind you. I said, you know, it was my first media event. Some people actually gave me some advice. They said, all right, you know, talk to this guy. He'll actually, you know, introduce the fighter to you. Like, I had people bring me up and say, come on, you know, it's your turn. Chat with Navarrete, chat with Nunez, and you just kind of wait in line. And occasionally they would say, the promoter would say, all right, we're going to do a face-off. So all the photographers get in here and just take pictures. All right, we're going to do all the fighters, you know, in line, take pictures. So everybody just crowds up. And I didn't have to, like, you know, fight through 40 people to get there. You know, there's probably less than 40 people total at the entire thing, including promo people, photographers, all that stuff. So it was probably the best of all worlds because it is a legitimate fighters, legitimate event through Matchroom Boxing, and not some, no offense to anybody fighting locally, but, you know, it's not like a rinky-dink fight in a warehouse, you know, a smoker or anything.
Definitely well put together. It looked organized for the most part, but it's always good to be able to have something like that in your own backyard. Like, some people have to travel to those things, so having it in your own backyard is even better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, million thanks to Emily Boxing on social media. Make sure you give her a follow. Thanks to Trini for talking to us again. And Trini, this is actually his biggest boxing event ever. So I'm very excited to see the actual fight on February 28th, Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona. Definitely check it out if you're in the area. And if not, you no matter what, you got to watch it even on TV because Navarrete always puts on a show for sure. Cool. So yeah, so let's dive into today's episode. We actually have something very special for y'all today. We've interviewed pro boxers, journalists, we've interviewed promoters, Al Bernstein, the voice of professional boxing, but we never forget where we come from. We never forget our roots. We are sports podcasters of the people. So I actually wanted to bring a buddy of mine onto the show to do like a roundtable discussion. This guy, he's a friend that I've known for like kind of at least 10 years. We've known each other from the craft beer scene in Tucson, and I'm sure he won't object to me saying like this guy's a nobody. He's just a buddy of mine that loves talking boxing. So we want to have somebody that just loves the sport as much as we do. So welcome to the ring, Mr. Tony Zamorano.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you being here. You're the first of this type of guest. So like I said, round table, just kind of free flowing discussion, and we're excited to get into it. But first, just so that people know, your bona fides, tell us about your love of boxing, where it came from, and how long you've been a boxing fan.
Oh man, as long as I can remember, growing up with the son of a Mexican immigrant here in Southern Arizona, growing up in the Julio Cesar Chavez days, the late Mike Tyson days, the Marcantora Bandera days, watching Pacquiao fight, having family in Tijuana and seeing Eric El Terrible Morales throwing down, or El Maromero Pais doing his thing, El Traveso Arce, a Tucson native now, just all these Mexican fighters. It was something that ran rich in my home. I remember sitting around a 24-inch tube TV watching, some of those early HBO pay-per-views and just sitting in a family setting, all losing our minds over boxing. So I'm just a dude who grew up around it, grew up appreciating it, and was fortunate enough to see some good fighters along the way.
As the kids say today, ball. I got to ask, pay-per-view fights with your family, paid for them or illegal cable box? You can say now with the statute of limitations.
No, we paid for them, man. We predate the bootleg Fire Stick, so we had no choice but to pay for them. But it was a cooperacha, right? Everyone was contributing those $10. Obviously, pay-per-views didn't cost what they do today, but yeah, man, I've just been around it my whole life, and something I always just loved watching as a sports fan.
It's awesome. Do you remember one particular fight that really got you hooked on the sport, or just generally the vibe?
The vibe for sure. It's definitely not one moment, right? But there were a lot of great rivalries. I mean, seeing the end of, not the end, but the tail end of Julio Cesar Chavez's career, the passing of the torch to the Mexican American kid, right? The golden boy, Oscar de la Hoya, and just seeing those transitions as fighters. But I would say my favorite boxing moment is actually several moments, and I would say those Barrera Morales fights, that trilogy is some of the best boxing on tape in my lifetime, in my opinion.
Hell yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Oscar de la Hoya being the Mexican-American person taking on the torch. I got to admit this, I kind of messed this up last week. When I was interviewing Eduardo Nunez from Sinaloa, I was talking about how we have maybe less boxing stars than we did back in my day. I said, the Mexican names like Julio Cesar Chavez, Oscar de la Hoya, and I commented, and you could tell he kind of went, and answered, because I know that man is from Mexico. He definitely probably is not a fan of De La Hoya, but I was nervous. It was my first event,
Yeah, no, that's an easy mistake to make. I also think, when you're in the circuit, you know a lot of the guys that maybe even you and I and Jamieson don't know yet, as much as we watch and as much as we're fans. Those guys are in the thick of it, so they know who's who out there.
Absolutely. So, apologies to anyone any Mexican fighter from Mexico who hates De La Hoya for equating, but no, it's hey, we're both Mexican American as well, so we support De La Hoya's reign in that era. So cool. So let's get into it, guys. Biggest story coming up for this weekend. If you're listening to the episode when it comes out this Saturday, the 31st, probably the biggest event in the last few months that it was announced. Shakur Stevenson versus Teofimo Lopez. Super lightweight fight. I want to ask, let's start with actually since we'll start with our guest Tony. What do you think this means for the winner, and them potentially being the new face of the sport? What's the vibe here?
I have a hard time with face of the sport, right? Especially with these guys, kind of. I don't want to say just starting at 140. They've had a few fights at 140, but to me, boxing is so flavor of the month now, right? We don't have a face of the sport right now. We can argue that Canelo's been that. We can argue about a couple other guys. I think it's more about who's poising themselves to be the face of the sport. But more importantly, who's the face of this division, right? We have I think the most entertaining division in boxing in the last 2 years was the lightweight division. These guys are getting older. They're stepping into super lightweight. And now we're going to see who's who, right? We're going to see if these powers pack a punch. Is it Shakur? And can he take on this defensive elite technician Mayweather style and prove that not getting hit is as important as hitting? Or is it more the Teofimo guy who rides the emotional wave, who's going to ride the crowd and have those moments, and hopefully a collection of moments, and prove that the Lomachenko fight and that win wasn't just lightning in a bottle, but he really is that dude. So I'm excited to see who wins the fight. I got my theories about it, but I think it's more about who's the face of this division than giving them the title, who's the face of boxing right now.
Okay, definitely. And we're gonna make official predictions at the end. So at the end of the segment. So save those and don't be a coward. Say it with your chest, but we'll hold it off for now.
For sure.
Jamieson, same thing for you. Kind of your thoughts. That's a really good, interesting point that Tony made. The face of boxing can. That's such a big question. What is the winner going to be like? Like, what are they going to look forward to after this fight?
So it's a great question, because the face of boxing isn't just what happens in the ring. It's a culmination of a lot of things, right? It's the ring performance, it's popularity, it's how much you're heard and seen from in general. It's a bigger than just the fight itself. Shakur Stevenson's a guy that likes to be outside. He likes to impress, likes doing interviews. He likes being active. If he wins and this propels him to take bigger fights going forward, as active as he is in and out the ring, it's better for the sport. Because now you have a guy that's kind of king of the hill in a sense. Face of the sport is kind of, like I said, I agree with Tony with that. It's almost like flavor of the month. Like, every month you can make an argument for whomever. But I think king of the hill is probably a better term to use, because now we have a guy, hey, this guy won fair and square. This guy's also undefeated, and he hasn't really ducked anybody. So there's no one that he's avoided or conveniently avoided or anything like that. He fought who he wanted to fight. Everybody agreed upon it. He won fair and square. This is the guy that's the new up and coming guy that, like Tony said, can eventually be face of the sport. But we can't get out face of the sport for this winning one big time fight. I think that's a bit much. However, I think you can work towards it. I also think you can be king of the hill where you're the guy that everybody's trying to get to. I think that's kind of a bigger thing, because Shakur can also move up in weight eventually. There's a lot of things with him. He's very young. He's still young, all things considered. So there's a lot of possibilities with him. So him winning this fight opens up a big bag of possibilities. So I think that's the thing. With Teofimo, if he were to win, which is like a 3-1 upset at the books, that would be interesting, because he's active. Maybe not as active as Shakur, but he's also active. That would be interesting, though, because I don't know. He could sell a fight, but I don't know how much buzz it is. He'd have to have another name with him. I don't know if he can sell a fight with just him being the headliner. He's like, he'd have to have either a co-main event or someone else that is tied to him. But either way, I think we're in for a great fight on Saturday.
Absolutely. And if anybody's tuning in who is not as familiar with both of these guys, I was just thinking last night, really, that Teofimo Lopez, outside of the ring in interviews, he's like the closest you could get to as like Deadpool as a person. Like, he doesn't shut up. He can be very annoying. Sometimes he's really funny and he gets me and I'm like, son of a bitch, that was funny. But he's also runs his mouth too much. And sometimes he has said some racist or racially tricky shit that we don't know that we want him running his mouth too much, because he's the kind who just doesn't shut up and he'll just say stupid things and just make himself look bad. Shakur seems to, not just love the sport, but knows his history and just seems to be better on camera, on mic. He's very braggadocious, but like in a fun way. And him too, like, he carries himself in a way that kind of is funny, not laughing at him, but he's got a sense of humor. He's got his style. If we're talking about what it's going to look like outside the ring, I don't know that Teo's like the best person to kind of bet our money on being like the ambassador for boxing. There, we'll say that. I think definitely as long as Shakur puts on a good fight, his biggest thing has always been that he's, quote, boring fighter. We did see a great performance against William Cepeda. I think he's got the skills. I think he's got the potential. He's got the tools. He's got the talent, as I always love to say. I think it would be better for the future of the sport, for new fandom, and for ambassadorship if Shakur won and became king of the hill. I'll say that. But in terms of setting up what's coming next, this past weekend we had Raymond Muratalla fighting Andy Cruz. He won his fight on Saturday in Vegas, and he straight up said at the end, "I want the winner of Teo versus Shakur." So it was a great fight. Andy Cruz definitely did a lot of good work in the ring, but I think it rightfully went to Muratalla. I mean, he's not a guy that's in a lot of the conversations. In fact, I saw him fight once and like not somebody that I followed. Tony, are you familiar with Muratalla as a fighter? Like, have you followed him?
Some, and that was kind of my point, right? Where he's kind of a high risk, low reward guy. Let's face it, boxing is about marketability, right? We talked about it with the Face of Boxing conversation here. Somewhat familiar. I think he's the type of guy that doesn't get the opportunities he deserves. He kind of has to force those opportunities because I think the name isn't catching yet. Despite being a good fighter who might be worthy of the chances, I don't think people are willing to even consider him a B side. He might be closer to D or E with the casual boxing fan.
So can a guy like that get to a stardom if he does beat Teo or Shakur, or is it like, I guess I'm kind of curious, like what leads the guy into that next level, or are they kind of destined to always be a D or E? I just don't know. Either of y'all, what your thoughts are here.
Jamieson, what do you think?
You're the guest. You got to go first.
I appreciate that. Again, like I said, he's the kind of dude that he's not just going to get his chance. So he has to be loud. He's the kind of guy that has to have that big moment. I akin it a lot to Teofimo against Loma, right? You got to have that moment that puts you on people's radar. Because I think if you ask most casual boxing fans, they have no idea who Raymond Muratalla is right now. Smart of him to call out the winner of this fight from like the political side of boxing. I think it's a dangerous move stylistically because there's a good chance he doesn't get anywhere with either guy. Again, a lot left to be seen there, but smart move by him to call out the next guy. Hopefully he gets his shot because I think he's worthy.
Well, Jamieson, I guess. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Set it up.
I was gonna rephrase the question and be like, not specifically for Muratalla, because I don't know how much you know about him or whether you followed him or all, but somebody like that who is a very skilled fighter who wants to get his name out there, what do they need to do to get to the next level and to become a household name? Like, what are people's options in that kind of mindset?
So there's two things you got to do. One, like Tony said, you got to be loud, almost obnoxious to get the attention of whoever.
Teo did it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And also, you got to take less money. You got to be attractive on the business side to take a little bit less money, basically a prove-it fight in a sense, where if you win, obviously the reward is a lot greater going beyond. But at the same time, when they go to evaluate who's able to fight or who the candidates of the fighting, and you're cut less than others, that helps you out in trying to get that fight. But that being said, though, the most important thing is probably being loud and obnoxious and trying to keep on pestering for that fight. You got to create some demand for it. That's the biggest demand. Because here's the thing. Let's say from everything we're seeing, it's like we all think Shakur is going to win on Saturday. So let's like hypothetically.
Now.
Yeah, you're right. So hypothetically, let's say Shakur wins. What's the next fight? Like, there's no automatic fight for him as of right now.
No one obvious, right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So that's where I'm kind of coming from. So you got to make that. If you're someone on the outside looking in, you got to make that the next fight. And how you got to do it, you got to do it.
Well, and let's not forget, Shakur moved up. Like, this is a super lightweight. Shakur's last fight was lightweight, so he's already made a move up to another division. And so, I mean, I don't know if there are actually, off the top of my head, I don't know if either of you know super lightweights that are sort of have hype right now in the rankings. I should have done better research. Are any guys that you can think of
I mean,
Shakur to take on
Haney,
him?
right? If he's active at 140, I think Haney's a dude to talk about. Richardson, Hitchens. I mean, we just had the Arnold Barboza fight. These are guys that are all right there, and I think boxing's weight classes are they're within reach. Is there anyone active at 140? I don't know. Are the guys that can fight at 140? I think for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, like Hitchens is my guy. I think Hitchens is a guy where, given the opportunity, he's a very dangerous guy in the ring, and I give him a chance versus anybody at 140.
No, I appreciate
anybody,
y'all.
Jamieson?
I mean, here's the thing. I think when you have a guy that athletic, that fast, and that confident, I give him action. I'm not saying he's going to beat anyone. I'm just saying you got action when you got a guy that is that hungry, he's skilled, he's young, and he's not, from what I've seen from him, he's not afraid of anything. Like, there's no fear. There's no,
for sure.
So I can, from a guy that, especially when you're trying to take someone else's belt, when you're trying to take someone's there's a certain way you have to go about that. I don't think you can casually do that. You got to take that shit. So
You got to beat him.
Yes, he has the personality and the bravado to do that. Will he do that? That remains to be seen. That's a whole different question. But on the outside looking in, that's a guy I can see snatching a belt when he's an underdog in the situation.
Fair.
He definitely has the skill. I mean, whatever we've seen, we haven't seen a lot from him yet, but what we have seen, I mean, the skills are there. As long as he keeps developing and keep taking big fights, he could potentially be king of the hill going forward. I do appreciate that that phrasing there, Jamieson. Well, we can't talk about people moving up in weight and being in super light without discussing Keyshawn Davis. He is back in the ring for the first time after his coming in a little extra chunky against Edwin De Los Santos. I'm going to start with you, Jamieson, on this one, because you and I had a really good discussion about it, whether we feel we're going to forgive him, come back. How do you feel about him returning to the ring, going up in weight? He did say he had trouble making lightweight, and that was, one of his excuses. We'll call it that. But are we ready to welcome him back in the fold, or are we still bitter?
We can welcome him back, but man, I need a performance to welcome him back. I need a dominant performance. I don't need no skating by. I don't need no lackluster shit. I need a real dominant, hey, my bad guys, I got y'all going forward performance. If we get that, all is forgiven for the most part. The screwing up the hometown event, not a big fan of. That's a whole different story for a different day. But in terms of getting back on track, keeping the main thing, and becoming the best boxer you can be, I can respect the dominant performance, getting back on track, and moving forward as a boxer. I can support that. If it's a split decision or if you lose, I can't. That's something nah. So my thing is this: you got to mess up. It happens to the best of us. You gotta get better from that. So if he gets better from that, it's all good.
Well, and the man has proven that he's a very skilled fighter who can dominate. I mean, the fight before he messed up his hometown show was against Dennis Baranchyk. Fourth round, body shot. Dennis Baranchyk didn't get up. Amazing fight. I remember that was on Valentine's Day last year, 2025, because I was in Austin checking that out. So that was a great night, and I was stoked. I was like, this could be the next guy. Of course, what happened. But what about you, Tony? Were you a fan of Keyshawn Davis, and do you think that he's gonna earn his way back into our good graces?
Man, how many fighters have we seen that lack, the discipline to get where they need to be, right? Guys who got what it takes, they passed the eye test, but it kind of seems like they don't give a shit, right? And I think he fits that mold of that kind of dude. I think this is more of a re-entry fight. It's kind of a get right fight more than a showcase for him. I think he has to prove himself a little bit. I mean, Ortiz isn't a nobody either, right? I mean, he's not going to be the most exciting fighter, but he is going to be a good fighter to fight to kind of regroup, remeasure, and see where Keyshawn Davis is. I hope I see some good stuff from him because I think he's a worthy fighter, but it does take discipline to compete at the highest levels.
Well, that's a good point. If he is just coming back to see where he's at, does that mean that people aren't going to be as excited? Jamieson, I mean, if he does win, not handily, and doesn't kind of, get him out of there and take care of business, is he going to have trouble coming back after this? Because this should be his comeback. Is he going to fade back into obscurity?
It won't be obscurity because he's still a name, but it'd be better off for him to have. Remember, he was on the verge of headlining events. So when you're on that trajectory, you got to do whatever it takes to stay with that. The moment something happens to where you get knocked down a peg or two, you got to be very careful because you either stay at that peg or you get dropped lower. So with him, to me, it's more of the how do you look this fight? First of all, are you in shape? That's the first thing. Are you struggling? Are you serious about making weight? Are you serious about your craft? This should be okay. This is what I expected. Let's take care of business, move on. If he's struggling or if it's bad, then yeah, it's going to be the third fight on the card instead of being the second fight on the card. That's the thing with him. So that's what I'm looking to see. Like Tony mentioned, very skillful. Skills is not an issue. Not an issue at all. It's the mindset, it's the discipline, it's the mentals. If those things are straight, he'll probably be okay and he'll be able to co-lead events going forward. But if not, then that's a totally different discussion. And on them cards that we see with all the fights, he's not going to be in the first two lines. It won't happen. He ain't going to be the 330 guy, but he's going to be in, he's going to be in the third or fourth line. And that ain't good.
He's what I call a sunset guy.
See, there you go. See, he already, Tony knows.
Yes.
He's going to get the show started for you, but he ain't who we're here to see. And I think if he dominates Ortiz, I'll be impressed, right? If it's a true domination, I'd be impressed. If he stops him flat out, I'd be a little shocked. I don't think he's there yet. But again, for his sake and for the sake of boxing, I hope he does what he's supposed to do and gets some of those night hours versus those sunset hours.
Well, and just for the record, I'm a little bit less down on it. Speaking as a fat guy who's only ever sparred and never done anything professional and never had to make weight, him coming overweight, yes, that's not good. It's definitely bad. He disrespected his hometown, the sport, etc. Period. End of paragraph. Return. What I'm saying is that doesn't mean he's like a fat guy who just got off the couch after chugging a fucking beer. You know what I mean? Like the man is still in shape and ready to fight. He just picked the wrong weight class and he should have spoken up beforehand. I'm not making excuses, but sometimes you just can't stay at that level, and he should have been a little bit more aware that he should have moved up earlier before challenging De Los Santos. So, I guess maybe y'all have a different opinion in terms of historically that, that's a more egregious fuck up than I think it is.
Boxing is too unforgiving, in my opinion. You only get so many shots. And if you mess one up, I think it can be career ending, in my opinion. I think it's that serious.
And I agree. I guess I'm also saying that maybe we're a little too harsh on these people that are
1,000%, but the industry is too harsh on them.
That's fair. But we can be the voices of change, damn it. We can be the guys.
Yeah, we can be the fat guys who say it's okay to be fat, damn it.
Yeah.
The sport is what it is. Cause I remember the sport's like a commission-based business, right? It's basically like, hey, sink or swim. And there's always somebody else coming up to replace you as a boxer. There's always somebody, if you don't get your shit right, there's somebody else they can put in your spot for the most part. Now, the super elite guys, they can do whatever they want to an extent outside of breaking the law, actually, like we're seeing with Tank Davis. But everybody else, if, for the most part, if you're elite, you can get away with almost anything. But if you're a regular guy or above average guy, you can be replaced. Like, they're not playing that.
That's fair. So are any of us expecting a Keyshawn Davis loss, whether it's knockout or by decision, whatever? And do any of us think that he's just not gonna be cut out for this one fight?
I think it's hard to bounce back from. I think it's really hard to bounce back from for him. Again, you only get so many opportunities. He had the recent slip up with weight. Can he do it? Yes, but it's a much harder road ahead if he struggles here.
Well, actually, my question was, do you think that he's going to lose or win this fight, in your opinion?
Oh, my apologies. I thought I said if he loses, does he still get the opportunity? I think he wins. I'm waiting to see how convincing the win is, but I do think he wins.
Sure, and that's where I wanted to start with, Jamieson. You've said before you can win ugly, and that's still a win. But yeah, how do you think he's actually going to pull it off?
I think he wins. My biggest thing is how does he look, and then also the shape. Like, are you taking your conditioning seriously, especially after what happened last fight? Right, you can't come in out of shape 2 fights in a row because now you're just not. That shows a whole different thing, and that's not good. So hopefully he comes in tip-top shape, focused, ready to go. And if we see that kind of performance on Saturday, it's like, all right, cool. We can chalk it up, kind of move on, get ready for the next big fight for him. But if not, then that's a whole different load of questions because we don't have a lot of guys that can not necessarily lead a fight card, but the average boxing fan knows that they have belief in for the future. We don't have a lot of those guys right now. So he's one of them actually that actually has a bright future. So we kind of need him to figure shit out and get back on track.
Pay-per-views are only valuable if we care about the undercard.
Yep.
Am I paying for one fight or am I paying to see a few dudes go at it? You know?
That's a damn good point. Damn good point. Yeah, and I'm a little bit more, kind of optimistic because Keyshawn did move up in weight. He didn't say, well, I'm going to try to hit lightweight again after not making weight last time. So that would be stupid. I'd be like, what are you doing? But, learn from that. And, again, I am a fan of his. I'm a fan of his boxing style and had a good time in his fight. So I do have that emotional attachment. I do want him to be back on top and, live up to that potential. So I'll admit that is my bias, but yeah. Cool. So we're going to talk about something else happening this Saturday, but I want to get all three of us on the record, and we're going to start with our guest here. What is the official prediction for Shakur Stevenson versus Teofimo Lopez? Who's winning and how?
Can I get an either or here, or do I just got to pick one? Because I got a couple of theories.
How about this? You can give it either or, but then you have to go on record and say with your chest. And then if you're wrong, that's fine. You can come back and say my bad.
Here's what I think. I think we're gonna have like another defensive prowess. Keep in mind he's had Bud and Mayweather in his corner, right, and in his ears. So that's a lot of defensive influence there. Now Bud can throw with the best of them. I wonder what's in Shakur's ear going into this fight. But he is who he is, right? And he's built himself in a certain way up until this point. I can see this being a 7-5, 8-4 kind of defensive boring fight for Shakur. And if Teo challenges him, I can see Teo having some moments and getting that big spark if he can get Shakur to get frustrated and fight outside of his style. Because that's who Teo is, right? He's going to talk trash. He's going to talk shit. He's going to try to test you. Can he do it? Can he hit a guy who is really good at not getting hit? I think ultimately Shakur walks away with the W, and I think he'll outgas and outlast Teofimo Lopez in this fight.
Goes the distance or no?
Yeah, it's a Shakur Stevenson fight. They all go the distance.
Jamieson.
Yeah, I'm leaning the same way. I'm leaning 116, 112, but a very close 116, 112 to where you could argue that a couple rounds could go either way. Like, that's where I'm at with it. I think it's going to be a very defensive fight, like Tony said, but also it's going to be a fight to where it's going to be a chess match. It's going to be a lot of adjusting, a lot of maneuvering mid-round, mid-fight, et cetera, et cetera. I think Shakur's the better overall fighter at this stage of his career. I think he can also score more points. I'm looking to see how aggressive he is, because the biggest thing with Shakur is his offense has been questioned at times. He has not been as aggressive in terms of throwing punches, especially power punches, in the past versus certain fighters. So I'm kind of curious to see how that goes in a fight like this where everybody's watching. So I'm curious to see that, but it's the reason why he's favored. It's the reason why, he's kind of next up in a sense. I would give him the odds of right now of winning the fight. It's 116, 112. I don't think it's like a blowout. I think it's a very close fight. I think when the fight's over, he will win, but you can make an argument for a couple rounds going the other way. And we know how that goes when a fight is 8-4. We know how that can go. And if you switch 2 rounds, you're at a draw. So I think we're at that kind of close of a fight. Good fight for us boxing fans, but I think he ends up victorious on Saturday.
Okay. Well, I'm also going to put on record and say I expect Shakur Stevenson to walk away with the W. I'm predicting that, he's learned enough from, his other fights, knowing that defense is not enough. He's got to counterpunch. He has to be aggressive, especially with Teo, who will throw you off your game, will just frustrate you. But Shakur has always been level-headed in the ring. He's always been prepared in the ring. And whether he was not as aggressive, his defense was on point for whoever he was fighting. So I think he can make the adjustments. I think he probably, and he's not doing this in a vacuum. He knows that this is a big fight, a big showcase that a lot of people are watching. especially being in New York. He's from Jersey, Teo's from Brooklyn, so there's going to be a lot of eyes of both. A lot of Puerto Ricans there, and Shakur Stevenson is partially Puerto Rican, so I think he's aware, kind of like how Bud Crawford is, that this could be his moment to really showcase what he can do. And yeah, with Bud Crawford in his corner, the best thing about Bud is that he's not just doesn't have great defense; he's a great counterpuncher. So I'm guessing that that's what he's gonna display this Saturday. And yeah, I also think it's gonna be a close fight. Definitely gonna go the distance. But I feel that Shakur is going to be, maybe he's gonna surprise people, kind of like Devin Haney did against Brian Norman Jr. He's gonna be more aggressive than we expected. Maybe a Shakur 2.0, and I'm pretty stoked. But one thing we got to ask: can anybody really hurt the other? Can Teo put Shakur down on the canvas? Vice versa. Tony, what do you think?
I think it is more likely that Teofimo Lopez can put Shakur down. Again, I just haven't seen that level of power. We're talking about two guys that are, I think, 5-0 in both of their last 5 fights. Their records aren't that different. We're talking about 24-0 and like 22-1 or 23-0. So you got two guys that know how to win. It's a matter of how they go about winning. I think Teofimo, again, if he can dial one in, right? Boxing's that kind of sport. I think he has the higher chance from a pure power perspective. But he's got to find him first. And let's face it, Shakur's really good at not getting found.
Jamieson, can Teo put Shakur down on the canvas?
I actually agree with Tony there. Like, we haven't seen the power from Shakur like that to drop anyone. Like, that's the biggest thing. It's not necessarily he's not capable. We just haven't seen it. So to be able to predict that he's gonna, KO this dude, I don't personally see that. With that being said, it would not surprise me if he wins on a stoppage. I think that might be more likely than a knockout per se. If it's just a straight A, he's taking so much, he's giving out so much punishment,
just beating him up.
Yeah, I can see that. That's more likely than a knockout. Shakur dropping Teofimo would be shocking to me.
Maybe a few extra pounds is what he needs, though, too, right? Maybe he's more impressive. I mean, knocking a guy out when you're that small is tough. Maybe the extra few pounds as he ages and gets a little bigger, maybe the power match with the mass. Again, maybe we just haven't seen it yet, right?
Right.
Well, and, he can always surprise us. But I think Teo's definitely the one that has shown more power. And just to be clear here, Teo is 22-1 and Shakur is 24-0. Because for the unknown goddamn reason, Teo lost to Kambosos, which I will never, after seeing him fight Josh Taylor and his fight against Loma, I'm like, how did this man lose to Kambosos? But that's neither here nor there. But here's the thing. Even if he does put Shakur down, I mean, Shakur got wobbled by William Zepeda, and he got hit with probably one of the strongest punches we've seen him ever get hit with. But he came back, he adjusted, he fought his fight, not the fight that Zepeda wanted to fight. So even if he does hit the canvas, I think maybe he'll rebound from that really, really well. So I don't know, but either way, like I said, we got our predictions in. Shakur Stevenson win, goes the distance, and I'm going to predict a really, really good night for boxing. So completely switching tracks to something else I wanted to talk about that is also happening this Saturday. There is another boxing match with another I would call him like a rising star, a great boxer that has a lot of potential. Xander Zayas is fighting this Saturday against Abbas Baraou, junior middleweight, and this is on Top Rank, which is now for free on Tubi, the same night as Shakur and Teo. So my question to you guys is, does Top Rank have any juice left? Like, I went on record in saying I have no problem with their fights being on Tubi as opposed to being on ESPN. I'm cool with that. It's free. Every TV comes with it. We just want to be able to access the fights. But the fact that it's the same night as a really, really big event put on by Matchroom Boxing, does Top Rank kind of just, they lost the plot? Did they not care enough to work around that? Our guest first, Tony, what are your thoughts on this fight happening this week? They also ran.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's on accident, right? And obviously there's only so many weekends in a year to do it. How many subscribers does Tubi have, man? Name brand matters, right? And I think if anything, it's a ploy for Top Rank to say, this is where you want to fight. I actually kind of view Top Rank as a little bit of a minor league. They're sort of developmental. It's where you start. I appreciate what they've done for the sport of boxing recently, especially with their partnership with ESPN. Zayas is a good fight. It's too bad nobody's going to watch it. Maybe me and you guys put it on a second screen, but most people ain't going to care. So I think it's not going to matter for him, honestly.
Well, and before I let you, Jim and Jamieson, there are no Tubi subscribers. It's free, and there's 100 million active users. So, like I said, it's on every smart TV.
Fair. I misspoke. I can only speak for myself. And as a guy who doesn't touch Tubi often, I don't see most regulars jumping on Tubi to catch something unless you're a diehard and really want to see Zayas fight.
Right. Well, I guess the only reason I've been on Tubi the last few times I have was for Top Rank fights. But yeah, Jameson's kind of the same question. Your thoughts on where Top Rank sits now?
It's tough because they lost two big guys over the last couple of years that are big money making guys. When you lose them, and you lose them basically for the same reason, both basically saying, hey, you don't promote us well enough. You don't get the bigger fights for us. We don't fight as often as we want to or should. It's very difficult to hold on to your company. It's very difficult to hold on to guys because that becomes the word on the street saying, hey, like Tony said, it's probably good for developmental stages, but once you get past that stage, you want to make a lot of money. You want to become a brand. You want to become a lot of these things. They don't do that like they should with their premier guys like that. And that has really halted things over the last 2 years. And I mean, Shakur left them last year, saying the same thing, basically saying, hey, I appreciate what y'all have done, but the growth is not there on the same rate as I want it to be. So that's why he left. And I think, Crawford, same thing a couple years ago. He left for similar reasons. I think that's a bigger part of it than anything else is the way they're managing and marketing fighters is not where it was 10 years ago or even 15 years ago.
Right. Well, and that's just a big bummer to me. I mean, they were the name that, like Tony said, their partnership with ESPN meant that boxing was always on basic cable most Saturdays, and you always knew where to find it. Whenever I went to a dive bar and there was a boxing match playing, I asked them to turn it to ESPN, and they would. That's Pacquiao fought there. Actually, I didn't mention this earlier, but I do appreciate Tony pronouncing it Pacquiao, which I don't know why the hell I have been doing that all my life, but this is the promo coming from Muhammad Ali. Damn it,
English is my second language, man. It's the only way I know how to say it. So.
No worries. But so I kind of bums me out to see. I never had a problem with him being on Tubi. As a concept, cool. Wherever people can get as many eyeballs, especially in the area of streaming, that's cool. The only thing is, usually, or correct me if I'm wrong, people know what other big fights are happening. They schedule around, right? It's not, they don't just kind of dump it. It feels like a dumping ground, I guess is what I'm trying to say. No disrespect to Xander Zayas, no disrespect to Puerto Rico where the fight is happening. Really bums me out that it's not happening next weekend because I'm going to be in San Juan, Puerto Rico for my birthday. So that's exciting.
Happy birthday. That's really cool, man.
Nice.
But and especially with Xander Zayas, I'm a fan. I definitely caught a couple early fights. I think one of his first fights I saw was on a Shakur Stevenson card and, really caught my attention. I thought this guy was destined for big things. I've hyped him up myself on the show. And he was actually the last Top Rank fight on ESPN was him. So it seems that if he really wants to be a star, he can't stay there. And that's just a bummer to think about. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Tony?
Again, for me, it's just the Top Rank ESPN move. I think it diluted it a little bit, right? Because it was available every weekend, and it's not a party if it's every weekend, right? And so, sorry if I missed the framework of the question, but again, I just don't think he'll have the eyes on it. I saw Jabari in the chat post a little bit about Tubi and the subscribers and who's on that, and I think with the fighters that are up and coming, it was a smart move. Again, I just think the general public and the name that is ESPN would have probably been better. I just think the frequency was the dilution, and trying to do something every Friday night was the nail in the coffin for Top Rank. You got to have some exclusivity. I don't necessarily agree with pay-per-view. I love what the UFC, talking about the Big Bad Wolf, is doing with Paramount Plus. But so I think there's got to be a different structure to how we have access to fights.
Sure, and sorry if the question seemed off because I'm bad at hosting, but that's okay because I think we could all agree that if I ever get fired, Tony would be a great person to take over the show. But no, really the question is, really the question is, are we going to see big stars from Top Rank ever again? You know,
Yeah, they have to. I again talking about development leagues. In my opinion, you sort of as currently structured, you have to go through the top rank ranks to get there, to get to the PBC event driven side, to get to the global polish that is Matchroom. Again, I'm curious to see how we continue to shift as combat sports shift, but I think inevitably you will see stars come out of top rank. I just think most people aren't seeing them at the top rank level.
Jamieson, are we going to see big names that start there and stay there, or is it a stepping stone now?
I think it's more of a stepping stone because you can run into a star. You could back into a star, right? There's guys who are late bloomers. There's guys that figure it out after, you're always going to have a guy in your stable that just, it clicks randomly, right? Whether he upsets someone, whatever the case might be. So there's always going to be stars. However, the stars now are way more business minded and business savvy than ever before. So they're constantly thinking about branding, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, coming up under top rank is one thing. Staying with top rank has to be adjusted, has to get adjusted to the 2026 and beyond. In order for that to happen, they have to change some of their ways and how they're doing business, or else they will continue to lose guys.
Very, very good points. And yeah, I actually am planning to put the Xander Zayas fight on my phone. I've never actually done that, the two screens, so we'll see how well that works. But if somebody in town, if the neighborhood is playing Shakur versus Teo, I would like to go out and then have my phone up on the bar with its pop socket. So we'll see how that works. But at the end of the day, I don't know, man. That's never ideal. Nobody ever wants to really experience boxing like that. Second screen, tiny phone. But I don't know. I mean, I definitely, it'd be really cool to see the crowd in San Juan come out for Xander Zayas. Again, not to come down on it because I'm sure it's a really, really big moment for him. Some hometown pride. Jamieson, you mentioned before, Puerto Ricans love Puerto Ricans and they come out to support their own
more than anything.
So I bet that there's going to be a lot of energy in that event, and I kind of hate to. I'm not trying to poo-poo it. It is just kind of weird to see. It does feel like it's a bit of a dumping ground to put it on this Saturday. So, well, that's
poor planning,
and anybody can be guilty of that. So cool. Well, let's. That's all the topics that we want to talk about in terms of the news this Saturday. Check out both Teo versus Shakur and Xander Zayas versus Baraou, if you can. But I want to get into some miscellaneous topics, especially because we have our guests here, and you and I have chatted about these things when we run into each other at the bar. Let's talk about the face of Mexican boxing, the future face of Mexican boxing. Canelo on his way out has 2 more fights left on his Riyadh season card with Saudi Arabia. Going to be skipping Cinco de Mayo because of a surgery, so we're expecting him to come back in September. So maybe 2027 will be the last we see of him if he decides to retire. So what are your thoughts on, Tony? What do you think if it's good for Canelo to retire, if it's going to be a loss for the sport, and who the next guys are going to be after him?
I think it's a huge loss. I think it's, without overstating, the biggest loss to Mexican boxing since Julio Cesar Chavez, right? And you hope that Junior was going to take the lead, but going back to lack of discipline and fighters who were supposed to have it. He had the disadvantage of having his daddy's name is the other side of it. I don't know. I think it's going to take multiple guys to make up the weight that is Canelo Alvarez as far as the importance. And maybe I'm overstating it. I will admit my own bias as a boxing fan. Canelo Alvarez has meant a lot in my lifetime because he was the next dude. So it feels like a big task. You got guys like Pitbull Cruz, you got guys like Navarrete. There are always going to be small guys that come up the ranks, right? But currently, I don't know. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't even know if we've seen him yet, at least for me. But I can probably catch him on Tubi soon.
That's fair. Well, and Tony, we did mention last episode that David Benavidez is slotting in for Vegas on May 2nd, which is the big event. Is this
that
something
was my birthday?
Oh, excellent! Hell yeah! So yeah, do you think this is going to do something for him? Being Mexican American, Canelo was from Mexico, but Oscar De La Hoya is Mexican American.
Yeah.
Do we have another Mexican American coming over to take over the reins like De La Hoya did in David Benavidez?
Man, if it's anyone, it's him. But I do think that, nothing, there's no other way to put it. Nothing carries the weight of a true Mexican fighter. Even myself as a Mexican American fan, I'm aware of that. Until there's a dude who is straight out of Mexico. And again, I think the battle that boxing is facing is a lot of these dudes are going to a different combat sport, right? They're choosing mixed martial arts. So how do we keep the best of the best? How do we keep those big names when guys have an option for the first time in a long time? Benavidez can be that guy, but I still think that there's no equation in which a Mexican American fighter can carry the weight of a true Mexican fighter in regard to popularity and relevance.
Yeah, bold claim, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the fire take. Jamieson is somebody who lives in Vegas, has experienced Cinco de Mayo many times. Obviously not all the Cinco de Mayo stars were Mexican. Floyd is a big draw in Vegas for a long time. What's the difference you see between? Do you see a difference between a Mexican fighter, Mexican American fighter, or a black fighter on Cinco de Mayo, or is it just because it's always an event, people are going to come out no matter what, being an insider?
Yeah, that's actually a great point Tony brought up. That's a top notch. I mean, De La Hoya was such a crossover star, so that kind of don't count because it wasn't being Mexican or Mexican American.
He's one of a kind, bro. I'm sorry to interrupt you. He was Selena. You know what I mean? He was a thing that didn't exist that no one had ever seen before.
Right. So he don't count. Like, you can't really count him. And that's something that I don't think boxing has ever seen. That's just something they hit a home run. It's just a totally different thing. But no, having a Canelo being from Mexico, being that good for so long. Remember, Canelo's been fighting big fights for like 15 years now. Like, he's been fighting big prime time, like big events for a long time. When you lose that, you can't replace that overnight. That don't happen. There's no swapping of that. You can't just, there'll be another one tomorrow. No, that takes time to develop. And honestly, between mixed martial arts and then also boxing, it's kind of weird because we don't train kids to be boxers anymore. We're training kids to do a lot of other things, and with content creating and everything else, there's less and less boxers coming up than it was when we were younger. There's a lot less people who are in boxing gyms as kids and as teenagers and preteens than where we were. So the pool, even if you're from a different country, even besides being from Mexico or the US or from the islands or wherever, the amount of kids who want to be boxers is a lot lower than it was when we were coming up as children and we were coming up as young adults. So I think there's a lot of things that's hurting the pool itself. But replacing Canelo, shit, man, we may never get a guy like that. And it's a perfect storm of being from Mexico, being really good, and being like a star, like being the overall superstar. It's hard to birth a superstar. Those don't happen overnight. That shit is generational. Like, Canelo is generational. Floyd was generational. De La Hoya was super generational. That's three guys in the last 30 years. Like, as great as Terrence Crawford was, as amazing as he was, he's not generational. Like, he's a hell of a fighter, but as a superstar, he's not generational. Like, it just don't happen that way. Tank Davis had a window to that, but that's gone. There's just not a lot of generational superstars that can sell out a weekend. And here's the thing about Vegas. It's not just the fight. You're selling out everything. You're selling out the restaurants, you're selling out the hotels, you're selling out the car rentals, you're selling out all the shit. So it's bigger than just the fight itself. Canelo did all that. I have a friend who worked at the airport basically during all of Canelo's career. Wednesday night, you saw people coming from Mexico, from Arizona, from California, and from every other state with the hats on and everything with Canelo gear, shirts, merch, the headband, everything from Wednesday to Saturday. I don't see anyone coming up that's anywhere close to that right now. With all due respect to everyone who's in the running, I don't see anyone close to that, and that's going to be hard to come by. However, it's not impossible because, again, it's not we stumble into guys, and it can happen. But right now, I don't see it like that. That's a hard pill to swallow. I'm sorry, but that's a tough one.
Yeah, well, boxing was always like a way out of poverty for people in the poorest countries in the world and Mexico. But like you said, content creation could be a thing. You can be, and sorry to just kind of repeat a point from last episode, but you could be a boxer with a lot of hype on social media, and that's going to get you some attention. But when you're actually fighting real competition, that shit doesn't hold up. That doesn't better your career.
Garcia. I got something
I
in my
said
throat.
that last episode. I said Ryan Garcia and Edgar Berlanga,
apologies.
Tony. I mentioned,
Sorry,
I
guys.
dropped both those names in my chest. So yeah, no, absolutely. So well, that's a point I never really thought about. Jamieson is everything is sold out in Vegas when there's a star. But
Yes.
was there a different vibe for Canelo than like Floyd in that sense, or we just equal stardom in
It's
terms
different. It's different because here's the thing: y'all would come out for both because Floyd would always fight pretty much a Mexican fighter on either a Cinco de Mayo or Mexican Independence Weekend. So y'all would be there. Y'all would be the ones mainly with the numbers, when it comes to the buying of the tickets, just in terms of hotels, et cetera. It's the whole thing. Put it this way: Canelo is just as big as Beyonce in terms of selling out an arena and selling out a city. That's why I compare it to. That's the power they bring because it's not necessarily the fight. It's way deeper than just the fight. And I'm not like, I'll put it this way: Beyonce had a cowboy thing, tour, whatever. You couldn't find a cowboy hat in the city. That's how big of that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So the same thing with Canelo. When he came, even when he fought Crawford, people came out here in droves to watch him fight and just to be in the city. Some people didn't go to fight. They were just here in the city because he's fighting. They want to support their guy. That's something we don't see. That's superstar shit. We don't have, like right now in boxing, I don't see a superstar in the States right now. I don't see a superstar that's like young and coming into the prime. I don't see it right now. It could happen, but I don't see that. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't currently see that. And that's why Canelo leaving in 2 fights kind of sucks because there's no one that's like really close to replacing him.
And Luis, as a microcosm of that, I worked in the beer industry here in town for a while.
Sure.
I knew guys at the distributors. The amount of VMC, the Canelo beverage, the Viva Mexico Cabrones seltzer drink, the percentage increase on fight week for Canelo was crazy, dog. I'm talking in the several 100% uptick of ordering more of that stuff because Canelo was fighting. So again, to the point that reach is felt outside of Vegas too, especially with a guy who's been as smart about his branding as Canelo was.
Yeah, I drank that shit only because I don't drink a lot of non-beer, non-liquor. I don't drink a lot of seltzers, but I bought that shit because it was Canelo's brand. Let's be real honest. Luckily, it was also delicious, so I didn't, waste.
They're so good. This is not sponsored, not a plug. Those
No,
things are delicious.
No, but you know what? We will take your money, VMC.
Canelo, if you're listening, Viva Mexico, cabrones.
Yeah, no, we Canelo's on this thing, but Eddie Reynoso is. Eddie Reynoso, háblanos, cabrón. Márcanos.
Ya sabes.
Yeah, come on. I know you're listening, Eddie. But yeah, and just to jump off a quick point, a point that I agree with our producer that we have to make. I disagree. Bud Crawford is a generational talent that did not get the due he deserved. He did not get the recognition that he deserved. It's just that he wasn't didn't fight big fights enough. But in terms of pure talent, that man has the talent of a generational, star.
So what I mean, so talent wise, yes. I mean generational. I mean superstar to where you could sell out a football stadium by your name only. Canelo has done that several times. Floyd in his prime could have done that. De La Hoya definitely could have done that. Bud Crawford couldn't. Now, it's not all his fault, but I mean generational is more than just the boxing. It's the total package. That's what I'm referring to. But as a boxer, it's definitely generational. He's up there with all the greats.
No disrespect. Turns out Omaha, Nebraska ain't that marketable.
So here's the thing. That's where if you were on, if you were maybe Al Heyman or with Golden Boy, maybe that turns out to be different. But didn't happen. It didn't be there. But no. But as a boxer,
maybe Canelo Promotions. Maybe that's his next chapter, right? He's taking the next page as a promoter. Maybe taking a page out of his nemesis, Golden Boy, right? Maybe that's where his next claim to fame is after boxing.
Facts.
Yeah, I do think he could have sold out an arena after the Canelo fight, and now that he had the hype behind him. But also, he was already close to 40. Like, if he had fought, I don't know, 5 or 6 years before, earlier, then maybe he could have ridden that wave. So, and that's kind of the biggest thing. That's the biggest what if, is what could Bud Crawford have become with that hype after beating Canelo. And something I'll never I'll live the rest of my life kind of wishing I knew.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, what could he have become if he was from New York, if he was from LA, if he was from Vegas? I think the trajectory of a fighter like that with that level of talent would have been very, very different had he had a different level of exposure, because it took a lot of really, really good fights, a lot of success from him before we started talking about him and giving him his flowers. And I think if he's from a coast or if he's from LV, I think that trajectory is very different, much like we're seeing with Shakur here.
Well, and that reminds me of a point. We interviewed award-winning boxing journalist Gail Falkenthal, who was at the LA event where he fought Madrimov, Bud did, and Eminem had a whole show there. And I changed the channel when Eminem came out. But she said that a lot of people were there, huge event, huge arena. People saw Eminem, and after he played, like 30% of the crowd left in LA after Eminem went off stage and didn't even stay for the main event, which is a bummer. But you know what? They probably were like, if the music sucks, then the fight's gonna suck, so we're just gonna leave, is my take on it. But so maybe the last topic we'll bring up, because I definitely wanted to discuss this with you, Tony. You made a good point, and I want to see if Jamieson, you've ever done this. Tony mentioned that in close fights, you do this thing. You like to do the thing where you watch the fight on mute, rewatch it to see if, without bias, without the audience going ooh, or the sound of the punches landing. So I'd never heard of that. What did that come from? Is that something that people in your family did? Like, what's that? What's your take on that?
I don't even know where I heard it. I feel like it was a broadcaster that made the point, and I wish I can give credit where credit is due. But yeah, when I rewatch close fights, I rewatch them and I watch them on mute, because I think announcers have their bias. I think there could be a lot of motives. We talk about the potential for crooked sports, whether it's judges or announcers or the commission or whatever else. And I think when you watch a fight in silence, you get to see really which punches hurt without the announcer going, oh, he got him there, or the crowd uproar, because fans will get excited if you're swinging volume and not landing the damn thing. And so you're going to get a lot of cheer from the crowd and all that. So I think watching, especially close fights on mute, decision fights that go the distance, knockouts, there's no disputing them, right? Unless it's a Jake Paul fight, but we're not talking about that.
No, we're not, goddammit.
It's where you get to see who really won 5 through 8. You know what I mean? Who won those rounds? And I think, again, I wish I could remember who said it. But yeah, rewatching fights on mute is really, really fun, because you get to see the body language of the fighter. You get to see their demeanor in the corner between rounds. You get to see which punches really hurt and didn't. And I think it really is a more sort of an objective way to watch the fight, because let's face it, in most fights, we also go into it wanting a guy to win, whether it's gambling purposes or fandom. We kind of got who we're rooting for too. So we react more to the oohs and the ahs. So yeah, watching fights on mute, man, I know we talked about it last time. I'll tell you what, it's a great decider in trilogies that were undecided when you go back and rewatch fights fighters who fought a few times. But have you ever done that, Jamieson, or had you ever heard that take before?
Yeah, that's an old school thing. A lot of people, the generation before us, recommends that, because they, remember, a lot of them grew up with the small TVs and stuff. So, I've heard that before. I've never. So here's the thing: I can block out the commentary in the crowd. If I need to key in on the fight, I can personally do that. So I don't need to necessarily turn off the volume and everything. But I have heard that several times. I forgot where I first heard that, but I have heard it. And whenever there's a close fight, I'll literally pull out a notebook and we'll draw a line, fighter A, fighter B, and judge the fight myself. Now, again, the three of us are going to judge the fight differently. There are certain things that, Tony, you may agree on that deserves to win around that I don't, and vice versa. Same thing with Luis. Luis be like, you know what? That guy's more efficient, even though he didn't land as much, but he was very efficient when he landed. I might be, well, he was all active, and, that won the round because the other guy wasn't as active.
Control the ring more, right? There's different things we value, yeah.
Exactly. So that's why it's very key to be able to stick to the script. My thing is this: are the judges consistent? You can't be one way in one fight and differently in another fight, and then when it's a close fight, we wonder, why is this card way off? I think that's where things get out of hand when it comes to like very questionable decisions. But for the most part, yeah, I just think being able to key in on the actual fight is huge. But I personally don't need to turn the sound off. I can look at the fight and judge it, real time and the next day.
You are a disciplined fan, Jamieson, because I am so easily influenced by the rah-rahs, man.
Well, you know why? Because a lot of times when you like now, I watch it in smaller groups or by myself. But back in the day, you go to fight parties and whatnot. Everybody's talking about everything else. I'm trying to see the fight. Like I'm trying to see who's winning the fight, who's making adjustments, is somebody wearing down. So I'm really laser focused on the fight. I don't care about any of the other stuff outside the food being right. But so to me, it's just one of those things where you just adapt because when you go to fight parties with 30 other people in there, it's easy to get lost in the sauce.
Sure. I'd say I'm kind of in between both of you guys because can be influenced as well by the oohs and the ahs, but also what I always try to look for, and it comes from my history of sparring badly, but I want to see exactly when the punches are actually landing and when they're being blocked, and I was never good at it, but I got pretty good at defense. Was never good at counterpunching, and I got my ass kicked. I'm not going to say this now, but there's a certain amount of pride when I was able to, well, number one, walking out of a gym like still on my feet, but of just being like, all right, my arms hurt like hell because I caught all these punches, but I'm not actually hurt. I'm sore, but if I was in a ring and people were really going at me, like I didn't get caught, I didn't get hurt. So that's kind of where I focus is, and a problem too is that a lot of the judges reward aggression. When somebody is more active and they're throwing punches, even if they're not landing, that goes a long way. Not to take anything away from Clarissa Shields, who's an amazing fighter, but she's got a pattern. If she lands something, her next move is just start throwing, and it looks good and it works. But yeah, like I've always kind of really focused on what is actually landing, what is actually hitting, and is the person kind of getting hurt by their reaction? When somebody, I've tried to throw punches, but I kind of watch to see where it lands, and then I open my dumbass up to get counter punch really badly in the face. But definitely watching a fight on mute and the only sound being the cracking of the beers. I haven't tried it yet, but it's something I definitely want to because it's really, really interesting. So yeah, no, I appreciate that tip. And for anybody out there, who wants to see boxing in a different light, try that. So, man, this show is on fucking fire. This has been a fantastic episode, man. That's pretty much all I had. I can't thank Tony for being here enough. Unless anybody has anything, we can wrap this up, guys. Cool. Tony, is there any place where people, you want people to follow you on social media? Anything you want to plug, or you just want to be a private dude that nobody knows?
Candidly, I don't have much of a social presence. I'm a pretty private dude. Most likely to catch me on FanDuel and or DraftKings. But no, man, no plugs for me. I just hope that boxing fans enjoyed this episode. I hope that we have some good fights this weekend, even the ones on Tubi. And I hope we get some good out of it as fans because, we're waiting for that next dude, and we'll see who's ready to carry the torch.
Hell yeah. And you know what? I'll go ahead and give a plug for you. People can find Tony back on this very show very soon because you've been an awesome guest, and I already can't wait to have you back.
I appreciate that.
Jamieson, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, first and foremost, Tony was amazing. He knew his shit. He wasn't a fake boxing fan. He was able to break down a lot of different things. So, Tony, appreciate you taking the time out of your day, especially during the week. I definitely appreciate it for sure. But for me, on Twitter, @TheJameson's probably the best spot. I try to be as private as possible nowadays, too, because people crazy. So I try to keep it low key. But for the most part, this is going to be a fun weekend. I'm going over to Buddy's house to watch the fights. But other than that, I can't wait, man. It's going to be a good weekend.
Hell yeah. Well, you can follow our show on Instagram, Blue Sky, and now on TikTok. I've started putting promo videos on TikTok. So, because I'm a young, hip dude who's turning, I don't know, next week I'm probably going to be 30 years old or something like that. 30, 40, so whatever. I'm young and hip. The show is young and hip. But yes, follow us on Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok. All the handles are @MixedCo Podcast. Subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. Leave us a 5-star review. It only takes a minute, and you see how hard we work. We bring the boxing fuego to y'all. Watch us on YouTube. The link is on the show notes, or you can find our playlist on the 19 Media Group channel. We have an official show email address if you have any questions for the mailbag, fun stories about watching boxing in mixed company, or compliments on Tony on what a great guest he was. Send it all to letters@mixedcopodcast.com. Don't forget, we drop new episodes every other Thursday, so please join us again on February 12th. For more news from the boxing world and maybe our quick thoughts on the Super Bowl too, tune in to find out. We have been the Mixed Company Podcast, a 19 Media Group production. Thank you so much for listening, and salud.